very tricky start to the season so far for Manchester United. Not even what's happening on the field, but what's happening off it as well. We've got to start by talking about Jadon Sancho. What's your take on it?
Yes, well, Erik ten Hag said some very interesting things in the press conference today, and he talked about setting standards that weren't there before he arrived at the club. And since he arrived, we've seen him prove this aspect of his work and show how much of a disciplinary guy he can be with Cristiano Ronaldo and then Rashford. And this apparently provides results. It's producing results at least internally in terms of just keeping things tight. And now with Jadon Sancho, I just feel it got a bit out of hand, because he was asked after the match against Arsenal about Sancho's absence on the bench, and he said he didn't train really well, and Sancho came out on social media, and now Ten Hag, Sancho is not training with the rest of the team, and Ten Hag came out and said that he needs to put standards, and the team comes before anything else. So I think it's very clear that this is the way Erik ten Hag works. And if you don't agree with that, you have to show some personality or show some results on the pitch.
I think it's also an interesting one because it shows the power and the beauty of social media for athletes, because now Sancho gets to have his narrative out there as well. What's your take?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to ask Natalie this. So when a manager says something like that and a player says the opposite, I feel like we instinctively want to believe the manager, because we're so used to seeing a manager being in front of a camera, a microphone, and talking about the realities of a setup. But I've also played professional football, and not everything that they say is true. Not everything that they say is real. And some of the things that he's levelled against Sancho, these are things that will probably stick with him for the rest of his career. So if you believe that it's wrong, you have to be able to speak up. But are the club going to be saying, OK, let's create a press conference for Sancho to try and say his side of the story? They won't do that, will they?
They won't do that. No, not a chance. But I thought it was interesting what Ten Hag said today, that he said that you don't take these decisions out of the blue, that it was kind of part of a process that was already happening. It wasn't just one thing, one training, one bad week that he had on training. So he's leading the narrative.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And how do you think this situation finishes?
Yeah, great question, because he needs to apologise, right? They've been very clear on that. And will he apologise? Can he?
Well, initially, no. And this is the main reason why he is not training with the rest of the team. He didn't apologise to Ten Hag. But now the window's closed. Everything happened right after the deadline day.
I've got to say, maybe this is like a real-world example, but how many times have you heard somebody say sorry to you, but you know they didn't mean it? You know, there's real remorse and sincerity in the sorry and I will change. But maybe some people just want to play football, so yeah, maybe they say sorry and nothing changes.
And tactically, it's very interesting, because I have no idea what Ten Hag is going to do with the front three, because I don't think he could change the system, but I don't believe that he could play with, because there's people have been talking about McTominay, that he needs to help Casemiro, because sometimes Casemiro needs help, and then he could play Casemiro, McTominay, Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes, Højlund, and Marcus Rashford. But this means he would have to change the system, which I don't think is the case. But he could play Garnacho inverted. He could play Pelistri, which I think is very unlikely because he doesn't have much game time. I don't know.
Hey, listen, I expressed my bias from the get-go. Everyone knows it's there.
Fair enough, fair enough. What about Brighton? They've had a great start to the season. 3 wins in their opening 4.
I am excited that we might get a few minutes of Ansu Fati, finally. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing him fit into this Brighton team, which is already so interesting. And De Zerbi was talking about this possibility and saying that we need to take it easy. He is very unlikely that he will start, because he didn't have as many training sessions as the others, of course. But he said he can play as a 9, as a 10, as an 11. So there are a bunch of things that you can do with Ansu Fati. It's going to be exciting.
Do you think this move is a better move for Brighton or for Ansu Fati?
Oh, because I think they're both really I was very surprised.
Same,
I was like,
so was I,
yes, but happy surprised.
I think everyone was surprised.
Yes, no, but it sounds so, it looks like a good match. This is why I'm so excited to see it, because the way Brighton plays, and you have Ansu Fati, who really needed some play time, and he needed something different in his career. Things weren't working as quickly as they did at the start of his career, and he had, of course, injury problems as well. So I think it's gonna, I don't know, it's gonna be good for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know why. That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to talk about Evan Ferguson, I think, the teenage wonder kid getting that hat-trick. There were 3 hat-tricks scored on that Saturday, the first time since 1995, I think, 3 hat-tricks on a Saturday. Ferguson was one of them.
Yeah, it's also impressive. Like you've heard of him. He's this wonder boy, this especially talented kid that, you know, Brighton have. He's the next one that's going to be worth £100 million. And then he goes and obviously has an impact in terms of the way that he plays. But a hat-trick, there aren't many players who play in the Premier League in their teens. There aren't many who score in their teens. And as you then go on to people who scored a hat-trick in their teens as well, you're talking about icons sort of the Premier League, the likes of Wayne Rooney. So it's absolutely amazing that they found another talent. And yeah, I'm excited to see how he does, provided he's fit this weekend.
Only Liverpool and Manchester City have gone 4 in a row against Manchester United. Brighton are on 3.
Oh,
I won't ask
wow.
you because we're going to get the,
the more objective
spokesperson answer. So I'm going to ask Natalie, can they make it 4? What do you think?
They absolutely can, especially with everything looking a bit chaotic at Man United.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No.
Why?
United haven't lost at home last century, it feels like. So no, it's not
But
going
they
to happen
haven't
this
been
time.
brilliant this season.
I know. And ironically, the last time they lost at home was to Brighton.
Yes.
Yes.
But I can't see that happening again. Not this time.
All right, well, we're going to tune in to find out. Looking forward to that one and that debate. We're going to turn our attention now to Manchester City's trip to the...
Just the Champions League, Carabao Cup, and the Premier League. So that's why, yeah, go for it.
Just 2 points off City at the top are West Ham, one of 6 unbeaten sides still left at the start of this season. Remarkable start for them.
This is such an interesting fixture because City start, of course, and you have West Ham performing really well, and some interesting stuff happening at West Ham as well. It's always hard to bet against Man City. I think you'll agree with
No
that.
pressure.
I
Feel the
can't comment.
stare.
I could not comment
Feel
on
the
the thing
stare.
now. No.
Even though they have players that are not available for Pep, important players that are not available. Besides Kevin De Bruyne, they don't have John Stones, they don't have Kovacic for this match, and they don't have Jack Grealish. But Pep always finds a way, and it's been interesting to see. It's like he wants to try everything possible in football. So now we're playing 4 defenders, and now we're playing Ederson even more up front with the deeper lines. And now we're playing these combinations with Phil Foden and Haaland. And like, really, it's fascinating.
Pep doing Pep things and City doing City things. Still a 100% win record.
Yeah, I can live with that. You know, it's very comfortable talking about them as a former player. Yeah, they're obviously doing very, very well. And I think as you look back at the success that they've had, little tweaks exist every single year in terms of how they play. John Stones played midfield last season. Well, he could have done that across any of the previous seasons. John Stones was there, but he didn't. Say Cancelo had a big impact at certain points, other people as well. But it's impressive. But to go to West Ham, let me be completely honest with you. This season, it's been fantastic because there have been 2 key transfers, you could say, this year. Rice has left West Ham.
Yeah.
Harry Kane's left Spurs. Name me 2 teams that are unbeaten this season. It's West Ham and it's Spurs. And I think the fact that they can find a way to play without people who we thought were almost irreplaceable for their football clubs, I think it's really interesting. And I think best of all from this West Ham perspective, I think they drew their first game with Bournemouth, but then they beat Chelsea. And I thought they played well when they beat Chelsea.
They did.
Then they went to Brighton, didn't touch the ball, but they beat Brighton convincingly.
Yeah.
Then they went to Luton and they brought their own ball and they kept it and they beat Luton convincingly. A side with that level of confidence that does it in different ways is always a very dangerous side. And the mood in that place as European champions, you know, 2 lots of European champions playing this weekend. That's nice. You know, credit to West Ham. I think they've proven a lot of teams wrong, a lot of people wrong, because at the end of last season, there was a split. David Moyes out, David Moyes in.
Yeah.
But now it seems very much like David Moyes is in.
And it's very interesting to see everything that's happening, especially on midfield with West Ham without Declan Rice. And you see players like Paquetá. Us Brazilians, we know Paquetá for his offensive skills, his freedom, his creativity, and he's all over that. And all of a sudden, he's making all these tackles, and he's much more responsible in the defensive side of the game. Like, it's like everyone from midfield just felt like they should step in and should take these responsibilities. So this is why it's really cool to see everything that's happening with West Ham and how they're finding new ways to progress with the ball, to defend on midfield, to organize themselves, because Declan Rice was such a huge influence in this sense as well, besides the leadership.
And finding new danger from set plays with James Ward-Prowse coming in and being involved in goals in all of his games he's played so far.
Yes, thank you for telling me that before they play Man City this weekend. But yeah, I think he's ended up being in a position where people are discussing him as if he's been the best signing of the summer so far. And who would have thought that'd be a player that's signing for West Ham? But you can see his involvement. He's played in the Premier League for a long time. He's an England international. And the way that West Ham need to play in certain games, it suits his style. Some of the delivery he puts in from corners, free kicks, it's astonishing, especially given how well that West Ham can attack those balls as well. And this is what you like to see. He's making bursts from midfield. Because when you go up against a team like Brighton, you're not going to get the ball, but you have the energy to be able to run forward and go and try and affect the attack. You know, he's a fantastic signing for them. It's perfect for the way that they play. And he gives me anxiety heading into this game against City this weekend, yeah.
Especially with some of those players that Natalie had mentioned. I'm going to stick with you, because how do they rejig things then?
How do they?
City, yeah.
With the missing players that Natalie mentioned.
The coach, I have to play against them, and obviously I want to beat them.
Big news, talking about Everton, is the takeover has been agreed. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's been announced by Everton, but it's subject to Premier League's approval. So a group of American investors, 777, they already are in the sporting field. They have stakes at other football clubs, and actually one in Brazil, Vasco da Gama. And the Vasco fans were very excited at first, but then a lot of questions of how much they really know about football, because the sporting results they haven't been really good in the clubs that they are. But either way, I think it changes the mood a little at Everton, and it changes the mood, especially with the fans, because there's been this protests and this lack of satisfaction from the fans, and it's completely understandable with the way that the club's been managed in the past few years. So let's see what type of reflex this can bring on the pitch right now, because we still have a long way to go until the next transfer window, and then we'll see how the new owners will act in terms of signings.
And they still need a little bit of a boost, of course, given that they lost their opening 3 games, got off the mark with the points against Sheffield United. What do you have to say about their start so far?
So I think they maybe deserve to win that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a spark, something changed.
Yeah, no, because I was thinking, am I the only one who's having like positive thoughts about Chelsea's season?
Yeah.
I really believe in the work that can happen there, especially because of Mauricio.
Yeah.
Does he know his best 11 yet?
Does he have to know his best 11 yet? Because he's got so many injury problems right now, and he's getting to know the players. And I like how he's like a coach. He likes coaching. He likes to, invest on physical preparation and talk to the players. But I'm very interested to see how he's going to work compared to his other projects, because we've seen him lead really good projects in Southampton and Spurs, of course, but he had time there. The pressure was different. So it will be interesting to see how he will lead things in this way and with so many players.
And I think maybe positive for him as well would be the fact that Chelsea are creating those chances.
Well, we know that glass being half full or half empty. Some people are very passionate about the ability to create chances.
Yeah.
Some people are more passionate about taking chances.
Yeah.
So, yes, the underlying sort of stats are there that they are creating opportunities for themselves. But then in the same breath, you want your team to be taking them. If you go through a whole season of just not scoring enough goals, there's a huge sense of disappointment a little bit lower.
So what is the difference, do you think, between actually putting some of those away and getting those victories?
I think it's gelling the team. And I think once you feel that things have more fluidity, because if you look at Chelsea's midfield, it's a really good midfield, like high quality players. You have Enzo Fernandes, you have Moises Caicedo, and you have Conor Gallagher, who's a really good player, knows the Premier League, and you have Sterling he's been so good this season, and it's like he's more aware of the spaces he has to attack and how he can cooperate with the team. And you have Nicholas Jackson, who is a very talented but also a bit raw at times. So I think it's such a cliche, but time, you know. Yeah, you need time.
Yeah, Bournemouth also haven't won yet this season. They, like Chelsea, are struggling for goals. What do you rate their chances are this time around?
I think, I don't know, like, I've been on the show last season, and I said one of my biggest problems as a human being is just always thinking Chelsea will be okay. Every time I was on, I said, they're going to win this week. I was like, I'm nearly perfect, apart from this like compulsion with Chelsea, believing they're going to win this week.
So they are your hoodoo team.
They are. Every time I look at because what I do, I look at their team from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, they didn't win last week, so this will be the reaction, and they win this week. And it tends to not happen. But I think both teams needing a win will be key. I think is it Bournemouth at home?
Yeah.
That's going to be a big deal for them, and they'll want to get a result, because what a big boost that would be if they beat a team like Chelsea, the team that spent so much money in this transfer window, and here Bournemouth with their budget and their situation, their stadium. So yeah, you know, it's probably going to end up in a draw, and I apologise to everyone if I've cursed it and made that.
So whatever you say about Chelsea, go the opposite
Just fade
way.
me all the time, whatever I say.
But Bournemouth needing to get that victory as well. They'll be looking at this game and thinking, what, Chelsea are there for the taking, or we're going to face a fired-up Chelsea who want to get back to winning ways?
Yes, no, definitely. And Chelsea has shown a few vulnerabilities defensively this season. And I think it just, because they're still picking up on things and they're still trying new things. It's a new defensive line as well. So I think Bournemouth can take advantage of that. And of course, they're playing at home. But I'm going to be optimistic about Chelsea as well, yeah.
And do you usually get those right? How much should we put into that? Just asking for a friend.
50-50, yeah.
Just asking for a friend. All right, now Tottenham are back home after their 5-goal heroics last time out. They're one of them. That also means they're going to be giving the opposition some big chances. Sheffield will want to use those.
Yes, that's true. And they changed the system. Now they're playing a line of 4, back 4. And up front, there's a big question mark now if Richarlison's going to start or if he's going to play Sonny as this false 9. And during the international break, Richarlison gave an interview that was really nice. Richarlison is a very emotional type, and we love him for that. And in Brazil, he's so popular. Brazilian fans, they absolutely love Richarlison because he wears his heart on his sleeve. And he said that he needs to seek psychological help to sort out some problems he's been dealing with in the past few months. That now everything's more organized in his life. But I've spoken to people from his camp, and he's been very involved with problems with his agent and his personal life, because his agent is a bit of a father figure for him as well, even though he's very close to his dad. But he's really, really close to his agent. So that affected him on a personal side and financially as well. He had issues around that. So all of this affected Richarlison, and I just want to see how he's going to deal with all this frustration that is building up, because he knows how the responsibility he has now to score goals, especially after Harry Kane left. And it was really brave of him to just come up and say these things.
And very important, I think, for him to do that and to be able to speak out. You've mentioned another important point, which, Nadim, I'm going to ask you about Harry Kane leaving. We'd wondered, where are the goals going to come from? James Maddison's got 2 and 2 now.
So I had a slightly controversial opinion as such, because I think when people move on, if they score 20 goals or 30 goals, people sometimes believe that means that they're now just going to be just a 30-goal void. Nobody else is going to be possible. You can't score. Well, firstly, someone steps in to try and play the same position, and other people around it find themselves in different positions. They find different opportunities. They play in a different style, because the guy that was there before in that particular spot isn't there anymore. Like, someone else is taking penalties, for example. So I think the evolution of how they're playing, it's really good. It's really exciting. Obviously, you'd rather have someone like Harry Kane in there, but these are all Premier League footballers. They've got a really good coach. They've got international players in there. And as Postecoglou said, like, James Maddison was a no-brainer for them. When was the last time we saw Tottenham Hotspur playing with an attacking central midfielder? was probably Christian Eriksen way back when. And this is when Harry Kane was really coming to the fore in terms of how good that he was. So there's a style of play that exists there. I'm really enjoying it, to be honest.
Sheffield United got their first points, as I mentioned just before the break. They obviously want to build on that, but it's going to be very, very difficult against Spurs. How do you rate their chances? What do you think they have to do?
It's the... What do they have to do? Tell me.
What do they have to do?
Yeah, no, honestly, because it doesn't look good to them.
No,
it does not look. Spurs are very entertaining, and Sheffield United, they haven't been.
Yeah, I think
all.
from my perspective, I think Heckingbottom was talking about, you know, they have to go there with belief, they have to go and have a go. But then I think some of the teams that played against Spurs, almost by accident, have played into the new sort of Spurs' strength. Because some of the games have been really open. Like the game against Bournemouth last week, exceptionally open. Sheffield United can't play that game. And I think the more that people see Spurs, the more they've got time to try and figure out a plan to slow them down. I didn't say stop them. I said slow them down. Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, because the transitions have been really good. Bissouma on midfield, he's been brilliant, and he's been him and James Maddison, they have been really good in these transitions. So it is important to slow them down.
Yeah,
definitely.
and just you need good fortune. Sometimes when you go up against a better opponent and they're playing at home, you sometimes get the win, but you need good fortune to do so. You need them to perhaps miss a few chances. You need to take your chances and you need to hope that on that particular day you do enough to get the win.
And to be fair, they made things difficult for Man City, so
yeah,
who knows?
We've got 5 more games to talk about. Very brief thoughts. Let's stick with you then, Natalie, on Wolves and Liverpool, the early kickoff. Liverpool got a great win last time out.
Yes, definitely, and I'm very interested to see who Klopp will pick for the forwards. I think the best combination now is Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, and Salah, but he has Gakpo, of course, and he has Jota. So Trent is not available. It's another thing, and the midfield has been producing really cool stuff at Liverpool. So,
what about Fulham?
The day you do enough to get the win.
And to be fair, they made things difficult for Man City. So
yeah,
who knows?
We've got 5 more games to talk about. Very brief thoughts. Let's stick with you then, Natalie, on Wolves and Liverpool, the early kickoff. Liverpool got a great win last time out.
Yes, definitely, and I'm very interested to see who Klopp will pick for the forwards. I think the best combination now is Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, and Salah, but he has Gakpo, of course, and he has Jota. So Trent is not available. It's another thing, and the midfield has been producing really cool stuff at Liverpool. So,
what about Fulham versus Luton and Forest versus Burnley, the 2 promoted clubs, bottom of the table, looking for first points in the Premier League? Can they get it?
Yeah, looking for their first points in the Premier League away from home is going to be very, very tough. But this takes me back to the game that unfortunately was postponed, because these 2 teams would be in a different situation, really, if one of them would have managed to have that game between Luton and Burnley. That could have been the springboard to your season in week 2. Yet instead, they've all lost now 3 games in a row it's been. But I think if I was to say, who do I fancy more? Do you know what? This week, I think they've both got a good chance. I don't know if they'll both win, but I think at least one of them will get points.
And do we take that word or do we go the opposite way?
Go the opposite way.
Okay. Natalie, there's 2 more games we have to touch on. It's Villa versus Palace and Newcastle against Brentford. Well, which one stands out for you? What do you think about those 2?
Villa Palace is an interesting game because the way Villa played against Liverpool is more passive than what I expected. So I expect them to really step up, and Palace has been scoring a lot of goals. And with Newcastle now, they finally get a reasonable run because they've had such a tough start. And Brentford is a really tough opponent. But before that, Newcastle faced really, really tough opponents. So let's see how things roll with them now, because there's a lot of expectations around them this season, of course.
Yeah, the run from Newcastle and the start of the season, completely the opposite to what many of us had expected.
Yeah, this is true. And it'll be those guys as well. You know, they've qualified for the Champions League. They finished 3rd last season. It was an exceptional season. And, they were 4th, weren't they? It was an exceptional season. And as they approach this one, they've obviously got some tough games in there, but they would have believed that they can be competitive within those games. I think they lost to Liverpool at home when they had the extra player.
With the circumstances.
Exactly. Like, that's... I'm sure they'll get over it, but that's something that they'll remember. Then the Man City game as well. Obviously, that was a disappointment for them, but they're in sort of dangerous territory now, because any team that loses 3 games in a row in the Premier League, that's the start of, like, a little crisis, no matter how good or bad that people perceive you to be. So they'll be wanting a reaction. If it ends up being 4, I think that could be a negative sort.
And then they still have Champions League in midweek to focus on, and now the balance of that as well.
Yes, that's true. We have European matches coming to all these teams, and especially with Newcastle and their very easy group on the Champions League. I'm very interested to see how they're going to cope with that, because and Arsenal as well, because they had Europa League, but they rotated more the team during Europa League. So now they have European football as well. They have Champions League, and Newcastle is going to be interesting.
I have a hot take. Okay, so it does feel like it's the group of death, or
Yes.
whatever it's called, whatever we want to say. But the fact is, they've still got 3 games at home, and I think those 3 games at home, they'll do just about enough to give themselves the opportunity of getting out of the group.
Oh, really?
I
So
said that
Newcastle
first.
and?
I said that. Don't worry about that. I said that first. So when it happens, everyone run this clip, and if it doesn't happen, this never happens.
Okay.
Okay. So we stick with that, or we go the opposite way?
Fade. Go for the opposite way. Whatever I say is best case scenario that likely will not happen. Yeah.
We have just a couple of seconds left. Which game are you most looking forward to this weekend?
I think West Ham City. I think it's going to be really interested to see how these styles of play will do in this matchup.
What about you, Nedum? Same story?
I'm going for Manchester United Brighton. I want to see if that run continues or if it comes to a screeching halt. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you have it. One thing we can guarantee is those games will be live. We'll be with you from first to final whistle. The rest of it, we don't know. That's the beauty of the Premier League, and we have a full fixture list. Enjoy the football. It's going to be plenty of goals, we hope, and lots of drama. See you next time.